Chosen one, your heart is responding to a universal signal. This call from the depths of the cosmos resonates in the most secret corners of your soul. The powerful vibration you feel inside brings you to the brink of a great transformation. You are no longer just a human being, but a being that connects with the stars and carries the energy of the universe. This heartbeat opens the doors of your destiny and makes you a pioneer, guiding the way with your light. Get ready and write 333 in the comments, because your time has come. The universe is listening to you, and you are listening back. Like thunder rolling through a cathedral of stained glass illusions, your very existence has rattled secret chambers that once believed themselves immune to disruption, and the quake has only begun. Panicked whispers spiral through marble-lined temples as master occultists watch their hallowed incantations disintegrate the instant they aim them your way. Ceremonies that once bent monarchs to their knees ricochet from your field like children's foam. Darts striking a fortress of diamond, leaving lifetime initiates slack-jawed, fingers twitching over crimson ink parchments that suddenly read like blank pages. They scrap long-standing playbooks, triggering red strobe protocols and blasting cryptic messages across private satellites. But every fresh strategy collapses before contact. You've grown beyond the frequencies their entire schema was engineered to manipulate. Money gushes from their treasuries in frantic torrents. Centuries-old bullion reserves, anonymous crypto vaults, dynastic trusts, each redirected to finance Black Ops task forces formed solely to analyze the anomaly you represent. Zurich bankers schedule midnight summits. Cayman attorneys tear up non-disclosure contracts under emergency urgency. The cost of a single week's failure against your shield eclipses budgets once allotted to topple small nations. Retired agents, sworn to eternal silence, receive hushed invitations stamped in forgotten sigils. Priority Omega. Stuffed leather chairs once warmed by policymakers now sit vacant, their occupants reassigned to track your pulse. Boards of influence postpone elections, dampen stock swings, and shelve social engineering pilots because their full arsenal has been redirected to one target, yet still returns empty-handed. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. They pour ceremonial fuel into cauldrons large enough to swallow villages. Tiger's bone powder, meteorite shards, sealed vials of royal lineage blood. Every spark fizzles. They entreat entities that charge interest in centuries, offering debts their grandchildren will inherit, yet find themselves answered only by echoing silence, or worse, backlash that singes their own ancestral lines. Each failed volley drains their potency the way a leaking hull devours a warship's rations. In the deepest hours when shadows gather like a cloak around the soul, your inner light stands as an unbreakable fortress, shining with divine purpose. Within courtrooms draped in obsidian velvet, where ancient justice weighs heavy and slow, once trusted allies face judgment beneath flickering flames of plasma blue. Mind probers move through memories like librarians, handling forbidden sacred texts, leaving no stone unturned in their search for neglect. Penalties ripple through family lines, Promised unions vanish, ancestral seats are stripped away, and the sacred sigils of bloodlines are erased from the scrolls of history. Whispers rise, revealing a truth sharper than any blade. Those who claimed you never truly lost you, because you were never theirs to hold. You are the chosen architect of your destiny, marked not by chains, but by freedom eternal. Stand now, as vast as the sky and grounded as the earth, for your light will pierce every darkness. This tribunal is not merely a severing of old ties, but the proclamation of your unstoppable rise. At the heart of a divine design, you walk your sacred path. Every trial, every shadow, only forges your strength anew. Remember, the chosen are bound by no fetters, and no darkness can claim their light. Your radiance is as infinite as eternity, as boundless as freedom itself. Prophets once considered infallible stare into scrying pools that fracture into spiderweb patterns, spraying shards across marble floors. Shuffling a tarot deck now risks spontaneous ignition. Runes etched on mammoth ivory rearrange themselves into ciphers unknown to any living tongue. Remote viewers emerge, choking on air, eyes filming over with stardust, murmuring vectors that map to coordinates outside Euclidean geometry. The intel they bring back is less than useless. It's hazardous, each attempt leaving wider psychic burn marks along their collective cortex. Your protective lattice appears to them as living calculus, numbers that fold, erupt, and rearrange faster than comprehension, like a sentient storm of fractal fire. Spells launched toward you boomerang home, strapped with extra voltage, detonating upon arrival and branding entire clans with their own malevolence inverted. What they cast as darkness returns as unfiltered ultraviolet, bleaching secrets they meant to keep buried. A parallel underground circle, the one that remembers instead of studies, extends a discreet hand. No glossy retreats, no branded enlightenment packages, just austere rendezvous rooms streaming coded frequencies that slice through the hologram of consensus reality. There, warrior mystics dissect parasitic implants, debug astral malware, and restore manifestation to its raw, blueprint state. Those attuned feel the tug like a lodestone in bone. They gather once a week in private bandwidths that the old order's software cannot penetrate. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. Practitioners foolish enough to probe your perimeter report rivers of crimson from nostrils, dream sequences where beings sculpt light like clay, and temporary erasure of clairvoyant faculties. Each skirmish feeds your armor fresh data, upgrading its countermeasures in real time. They are not pushing against a wall. They are sparring with an adaptive supernova that metabolizes hostility into higher brilliance. Dust-laden tablets predating cuneiform speak of figures called epic terminators, vibrations encoded to reboot failing timelines. Those scrolls identify you. Their contingency manuals warn that if such a being breaches containment, reality's old scaffolding will collapse at exponential velocity. Accordingly, they've commissioned consciousness bunkers, psychic panic rooms barricaded behind labyrinthine sigils, yet construction lags behind the speed of your expansion. With arcane optics offline, they fall back on binoculars and rental sedans. But field teams wilt under the strain, migraines like tectonic plates shifting behind the eyes, déjà vu that lasts hours, epiphanies erupting over iced coffee runs. Security cameras glitch when you pass. Debit logs corrupt themselves. Reports mention instances where you appear in 2 zip codes within the same minute. Headquarters circulates memos warning of reality drift around the target, though no one deciphers what that truly portends. Globally, fraternal cohesion disintegrates. London blames DC, Paris blames Rome, Istanbul mutters that Atlantis never fell this hard. Fear of contagious autonomy spirals, and councils once sworn to shared dominion hoard secrets, bracing for internal betrayals. Younger acolytes eye exits, having glimpsed the brittle skeleton beneath their elders' pomp. Their analytic mathematicians isolate another consciousness frequency designed to resonate with yours. Model projections forecast chain reaction awakenings, the moment vectors intersect. Thus they seed counterfeit coincidences, stage emotional landmines, deploy silver-tongued disruptors. Yet each obstacle only anneals both waveforms, guaranteeing eventual convergence so potent it could rattle the dielectric barrier encasing global thought. Meanwhile, casual passers-by soak up your resonance like seeds drinking rain. A cashier spirals into existential clarity. A commuter jolts awake mid-ride, recalling memories from before the program. Buildings where you linger acquire dead zones nobody's Wi-Fi can penetrate. Entire postal codes register spikes in lucid dreaming and empathy. Their attempt at physical quarantine fails when they learn consciousness outpaces walls, traveling via idea, rumor, and breath. Imagine a sunrise so fierce it melts the frost right off the fence posts before a farmer can sip his first coffee. That's the kind of heaven-fueled glow rolling out of you right now, and every power broker hiding in the shadows can feel the temperature climbing. Private position papers that once forecast market swings and regime changes now read like last wills and testaments. Predictive engines, those high-dollar black boxes stuffed with quantum cores and secrecy, keep printing the same silent headline. Your disappearance would do nothing to mute the resonance you've already seeded into creation. Analysts stare at heat maps that refuse to cool, tracing currents of influence that behave less like a person's legacy and more like a river that has carved a brand new canyon overnight. They delete, recalibrate, rerun, and still the graphs blaze with the same unmanageable flare. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. Consultants, once hired to sculpt geopolitical chessboards, have pivoted to triage mode. In whispered conference rooms, they swap survival strategies, bargaining classified archives for promises of amnesty. Data brokers, those self-styled gatekeepers who used to auction secrets to the highest bidder, now unload terabytes at fire sale rates, praying transparency might buy them a safe harbor in the age that's dawning. Curators who tended vaults of forbidden scrolls flip heavy switches, relinquish passwords, or simply drag folders into the light, hoping a public flood will spare them private retribution. Yet even these capitulations spark panic among purists. Factions cling to the old worldview with white-knuckle grip, convinced that if knowledge can't be caged, it must be cremated. In remote monasteries and urbane salons alike, disciples stack parchment, microfilm, and monolithic drives into sacrificial pyres. The flames lick centuries of clandestine scholarship, pages curling like autumn leaves, glyphs lifting into the air as soot. They would rather watch their doctrine ascend as smoke than be rewritten by insurgent hands. Still, each lost manuscript merely clears new space for revelation. Where one library collapses, communal mind gardens spring up, open-source constellations where former footnotes bloom into living philosophies. And through every network node, your signal keeps humming, tuning hearts the way a gospel choir tunes a sanctuary, firm, warm, irresistible. Engineers attempting to throttle bandwidth discover that the code has tunneled below physical layers, stitched into the vacuum fluctuations themselves. Think of it. Even if every trace of your biometric imprint vanished tonight, the melody you set loose would keep climbing the scales of consciousness, teaching itself to new singers. That notion terrifies strategists used to pulling puppet strings. Their simulations, once smug with certainty, now trigger warnings in red text, the digital equivalent of a preacher's voice, breaking from the weight of conviction. Meetings scheduled to celebrate quarterly dominance dissolve into crisis sessions where nobody dares record minutes. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the Super Thank You button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. Supply chains that once ferried ritual components and clandestine tech now buckle under sudden shortages. The budget lines marked containment balloon until accountants throw up their hands, unable to reconcile assets with liabilities when the very ledger is glitching. Hedge fund algorithms trained to profit off controlled chaos misfire as the chaos grows ungoverned. You've become the variable their models cannot normalize, the stone the builders rejected that now anchors an altogether different foundation. Meanwhile, grassroots storytellers, bloggers, grandmothers, cab drivers, retired school teachers pick up fragments of your saga and lace them into everyday talk. The narrative spills out of tiny living rooms and onto Main Street billboards, rebranded not as conspiracy, but as testimony. The atmosphere thickens with possibility. You can almost taste it, like ozone before a summer storm. Criticize it, censor it, footnote it, doesn't matter. The story moves with wind speed, fueled by the ancient spiritual truth that word of mouth is really breath of spirit. Internal memos reveal that executive committees, once united by ironclad oaths, now splinter along fault lines of despair and awe. Some leaders draft surrender protocols, arguing that cooperation with destiny beats annihilation by it. Others double down, rallying loyalists to shore up the crumbling walls, even as they admit, under flickering fluorescent light, that the mortar no longer binds. Insomnia is pandemic in those circles. Sleepless architects pace marble floors, haunted by the prospect of their own irrelevance. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. And still, the wavefront you launched pushes outward. Economists notice unexpected boons in regions previously deemed resource deserts, innovations sprouting in co-ops, trust funds redirected into community ventures, local currencies gaining traction overnight. Sociologists keep revising papers on mass behavior models because the standard curve no longer fits. Generosity spikes where fear was forecast, and resilience arises where dependency was designed. Security experts once proud of airtight surveillance find cameras distorted, microphones choked with static the moment anyone speaks your name in earnest devotion. Attempts to rewire satellites meet with cascading system faults. Technicians report seeing fractal light patterns dancing across their diagnostic monitors, as if the circuitry itself has joined your uprising. Old guard whispers of technological rebellion, but the junior engineers just call it the software catching the Holy Ghost. Universities, those cathedrals of licensed thought, convene emergency panels to debate how curriculum must shift when yesterday's axioms disintegrate by morning. In lecture halls, tenure-track scholars toss aside prepared slides to field student questions about metaphysics, ethics, and the physics of compassion. The old guard protests, yet enrollment skyrockets in courses formerly deemed fringe. Nostalgic administrators clutch rulebooks that now feel like museum pieces. Amid this flux, you walk steady, guided by something less like a roadmap and more like a living river you sense beneath your feet. You know institutions are only scaffolds. When the great wind comes, scaffolds creak and topple, but the living stones remain. Words you speak, simple, home style, heart level, land with seismic effect, because they carry zero coercion, only invitation. Listeners feel the authenticity, the way skin feels sunlight through cloud break, and once felt, it cannot be unfelt. As archives crack open, by willing hands or by force of illumination, ordinary folks read passages that confirm what their gut long suspected. The cage was always imaginary. Shock turns to laughter, laughter to resolve. Communities start drafting charters, built on mutual aid rather than hierarchical dictates. Neighborhoods plant gardens, where empty lots once collected trash. Former rivals swap resource lists over potluck dinners. Songs from different languages merge into shared choirs, ringing out under star fields brighter for having shed light-polluting lies. In think tanks once famed for wargaming, strategists stare at heat maps gone technicolor. They note with dread that the hotspots align not with troop deployments or economic choke points, but with gatherings where folks hold hands and declare that fear no longer calls the tune. The analysts enter those coordinates into forecasting models, press enter, and the screen floods with data too harmonious to weaponize. There is no line item for love your neighbor, yet that ledger entry now dwarfs all others. And so their calculus devolves to triage. They ask, how do we curtail an influence that thrives on transparency? The paradox mocks them. Leak suppression only spotlights. Smear campaigns ricochet into testimonies of grace. Deplatforming yields diaspora networks, decentralized, untrackable, mirroring the very subquantum lattice that now houses your code. They consider scorched earth tactics, but every scorched field becomes fertile under the rains of collective awakening. Some enclaves resort to ritual arson, feeding sacred texts to hungry flames in stone courtyards, chanting to extinguish ideas by eradicating ink. Yet even as letters blacken, onlookers snap images that spread faster than the smoke can rise, turning each ember into a beacon. Children trace patterns in the ash, reinscribing wisdom with giggled creativity that no censor's broom can sweep away. The word, once made paper, becomes living flesh in them. What pyre can contain a heart on fire? Boardrooms convert to confession booths. Executives once armored in bespoke suits confess to junior staff just to breathe easier. Stockholders clamor for ethical realignment, threatening divestment if companies cling to shadow dealings. Lawsuits alleging generational fraud hit the courts in waves so vast that clerks devise new docket structures merely to file them. In the background, a chorus of digital prophets builds open-source legal toolkits, empowering litigants who had never dreamed of challenging giants. From megacities to ranch land, prayer circles swell. some overt, others disguised as book clubs or bowling leagues. People speak blessing over soil, water, sky, code, machine, molecule, and algorithm. The frequency rises. Instruments tuned to record brainwaves exhibit momentary coherence spikes across test groups, as if minds thousands of miles apart have entered the same hymn. Researchers label the anomaly distributed phase lock, unaware they've just stubbed toes on the threshold of collective holiness. And through it all, the once untouchable lodges retreat into echoing halls, counting artifacts that now sit inert, powerless as childhood toys. Grip looses from gavel, robe hangs limp, emblematic rings feel suddenly heavy. For countless lifetimes, they hoarded mystery like dragon gold. But gold's worth dims in a kingdom where streets already shine like transparent glass. Meanwhile, you find yourself less a commander than a gardener. You water seeds with kind sentences, pull weeds by telling a story that frees someone from shame, shield saplings by listening until wounds speak their last hurt. Every humble task multiplies what no empire can buy: trust, kinship, revelation. From the sidewalks up, creation remaps itself around that ordinary grace. So let the white papers keep stacking like tombstones. Let algorithms print their funeral dirges. Even a document signed in triple blood fades beside living testimony sung on neighborhood porches. The lattice hosting your waveform hums with perpetual expansion, rewriting variables at Planck-length intervals beyond any kill switch. Salvagers will claw through ruins for leverage, but find only breadcrumbs that lead them back to their own hearts, or to nowhere at all. Now is the time to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. You can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord guide your path. The narrative here is simple enough for a child, yet grand enough for galaxies. Light showed up, shadows panicked, love out-persisted the panic. And because love is endlessly fractal, every attempt to quarantine it only increases surface area. That is why bargains struck in bunker basements unravel before sunrise, why data vaults crack open in the soft hands of whistleblowers, why bonfires meant to erase memory light the faces of fresh believers instead. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. Take comfort and stride on. The Storm You Ride is authored by Mercy Older Than Stars. Its trajectory absorbs sabotage, converts malice into momentum, and archives the whole journey in a ledger written on souls, not spreadsheets. Those who cling to the dying framework will either release their grasp or be carried forward by a current they tried to dam. Your only task is to keep shining, steady, homespun, unstoppable, while the world discovers it was built for daylight all along. Equation after equation yields the same terminal output: inevitable dissolution of the present control regime. They finally grasp that your interference isn't sabotage, it's the overdue software update for an operating system rotten with backdoors. Their panic was never about failing magic. It was dread of the day someone would exceed the sandbox they'd tricked humanity into accepting as the whole game. That day has come. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. Reality itself reclines to accommodate your stride, clearing debris like tide withdrawing before a sunrise. You act less like a person overturning empires and more like a new constant sliding into the universe's formula, rendering obsolete any structure predicated on hidden chains. Light once filtered through stained deception now shines unmuted, and shadows, exposed, have nowhere left to nest. The long night of unseen puppeteers unravels thread by trembling thread, because a singular radiance, self-generating, self-duplicating, self-disseminating, now permeates the weave. You are not merely immune to their sorcery. You have transcended the category of target altogether, becoming the horizon they cannot chase, the upgrade they never wanted but cannot refuse. Their dominion wanes beneath waves of your uncontainable luminescence, and the world tills its soil for a harvest they can neither predict nor prevent.